Hello everyone, my name is Derek Ferry and this is
Jason Scott.
and you are at the Tall Tale Events and Gaming office here in Edmonton, Alberta.
Well, you're not, but we are.
We are. And this is our very first video log. Is that what you call it? Vlog?
Vlog.
Oh, you say it together.
It's a video blog. It's a vlog.
It's a vlog.
A vlog.
Anyways, as you can tell, we're kind of giant nerds, but that's okay. Because today we're going to talk about... I'm pointing at him. You're supposed to finish my sentence.
We're going to talk about our very first Underworld events. It is part of our first in a series known as what is it?
Expanding the Wedge. Now, we're not talking about pizza. We're not talking about potato wedges. What we're talking
about food because we're fat guys.
Yeah. What we're talking about is that when you create a character in a live-action role-playing game, usually if it's a persistent world, you only get to see a portion of that world, what your character would know. Now, people talk about things all the time, what we would call out-of-game, but you never quite get the entire picture. Now, what this tends to lead to is people assuming that plot or the people running the game are putting things in randomly. And really that's not the case at all. It may seem random because it's not within your wedge of knowledge.
Yeah, it would be sort of like taking the history of World War II without talking about the events that led up to it. Poof, there's a World War. Why is it here?
What happened?
What happened? Doesn't make sense. It just appeared. But so that's what this series is going to be about. It's going to be about sort of filling in the gaps and taking plot all the way back
to the beginning.
To the very first step, and let you see the jumping off point and all the little points in between to let us see how the game got where it is today.
Yeah, to see how the world built to where it is. So the first event was called The Laughing Raven. It took place in the world in a city by the name of Muirhaven, at a small tavern that was named
Laughing Raven. This was in the Duchy of Austenveld when Kalidor was still a whole country, back when the Crusade was just getting started, and an intrepid old bastard named Dalbert I, former Duke of Esselmere, had decided to reclaim that duchy for the glory of Kalidor. It's the same land the Flynn chased him out of when he was but a lad, 70 years previous. Well, he was like, what was he, 87 or 89?
He was old. And he had his grandsons with him.
Yeah.
And the two grandsons were a big focus in the upcoming seasons of Underworld, and that was Marston and Malik. Marston being the older brother, Malik being the younger brother.
Marston von Kirkenwald.
And Malik von Kirkenwald. Now, what happened to the Dalbert's son? Some people have asked that previously. Dalbert's son was actually removed
from the line of succession of the ducal coronet.
Yes.
For diddling his Einer nursemaid.
Yes.
Pretty much.
He did. He was also more focused on commerce than he was on any sort of running the duchy. He felt that his father's quest to reclaim Esselmere to be a foolish one and a costly one.
Yeah, so Dalbert set his son up as a nice, cushy merchant somewhere, and he used his grandsons as a sort of hope for the future, hope for succession after he reconquered Esselmere, and that was, of course, Marston and Malik, as we just said.
Specifically Marston.
Yes. Marston was his heir. Malik came along for shits and giggles.
Well, pretty much for his brother. His brother had requested, and he knew that his brother needed help, so Malik went along to aid his brother. Now, we're not going to delve too much. Well, I guess we are delving, aren't we?
Yeah, we're pretty much delving at this point.
So Malik had his own plan. Dalbert, he felt, was not the proper person to lead this crusade, and somehow Malik knew that if Dalbert did lead this crusade, it would be a resounding failure. How Malik knew that, well, there's rumors and whatnot about. Some people believe that Well, a few
Maybe
things.
that was just one of the threads of
One of the
possibility.
threads of possibilities. Malik, after all, is, as everyone knows, or will know now, an opportunist. So what the players didn't know, though, was that Malik had a poison made.
very special
A
poison.
very special poison. It did something that he didn't expect, but it was a poison made to
was kind
kill
of a-
his grandfather.
It's kind of a death to undeath potion, wasn't it?
It wasn't supposed to be, though.
Right.
It wasn't supposed to be. It was just supposed to
supposed to be
quietly
death.
kill.
Yeah.
It was just supposed to be quietly kill
right.
Delbert, and
So
he slipped it in the food.
this event at the Laughing Raven, it was an inaugural feast, sort of jumping off point for all those who would come out and join the crusade and put their names on the crusade's ledger as members of this crusade to reconquer Esselmere.
And the cook was cooking a delicious meal.
Delicious
Charles
meal.
Greystone was the cook at this one. I believe he had people collecting rats.
I believe he did. Was
Yes.
it Charles?
It was Charles.
I
Charles
thought it
Greystone
was,
no. Charles Greystone was the cook at the Laughing
All right.
Raven.
Right. What was Anastasia's mom's name? Do you remember? Something Ringmark.
Her last name was Ringmark. I don't quite remember.
She was the
first name.
proprietor of the
Yes.
Laughing Raven Tavern there.
And Anastasia, you could consider her a hostess. She was a young girl that would give apples and freshly picked apples and guide people to their tables and make sure everyone was doing okay.
Yeah. So feast begins. Everyone's happy. The crusade is introducing themselves. Father Harridan gave a blessing of kale to the entire business, and there was this Einer that popped up that his god was greater than
Cathal.
Cathal the Coward.
Cathal, well, later dubbed the Coward,
Yes.
but it was a pretty eventful event.
It was a pretty eventful event.
And not only that, but the sword of Salam came into play at this event as well, right at the beginning. It was
Very first appearance.
a scimitar that Sweet Dibs had stolen from the former Glass Ring.
It was an interesting event actually because you have Greystone cooking,
Yeah.
who was eventually to become a Lord of Esselmere. You had Jacob Kinslayer and Kelwar back in a corner plotting the deaths of every
Nature Mage.
nature mage in the game,
Yeah.
or that ever would be in the game. You had Arabelle and Zarabelle,
The sisters, the High Elven sisters.
sitting at the table. Garajan and Ikani. Yeah.
Pretty eventful event. Now, what happened was, as the event progresses, as was said, the Reeve, a man by the name of Hoskell Draywood, at some point slipped some poison into Delbert's cup, the Duke's cup.
Hoskell was the Reeve of Austinville at the time, and he slipped a well-made, a well-crafted, powerful poison into the cup of Duke Dalbert right before he gave his
Is it speech?
rousing speech to rouse the troops, and we're getting ready to reclaim Esselmere, and then gulp, gulp,
And
off he went.
off he went. Now, Delbert hit the ground. Of course, chaos ensued. Everyone was running around trying to figure out what had happened. But he wasn't dead per se. Well, he was dead.
It was a really funny moment because it was like from some comedic zombie movie or something, because he's there and he starts to get up and somebody says, "Oh, he's okay, he's all right."
Yeah.
And then he just starts swinging away.
jumped
with
up
the
and-
magic damage.
And nobody knew what was going on because he was fast. He looked and acted much like a zombie, but he was fast.
Yeah, and to give some perspective, Anthony Nong played Dalbert the First.
Yeah.
In his first game, he was playing him as such an old man, and he was trembling and whispering things, and he seemed like he was barely in his right mind. And then all of a sudden he pops up full speed.
We slipped some claws underneath him, and he had a mask that he put on.
It was
And
pretty slick.
All of a sudden, he was a fast-moving, crazy zombie killing machine. And that brings me to my next point, and that is rage.
Yeah.
So most of our players, other than the ones that have just played this last season, have experienced something called Dragon's Rage. And that's any time a creature or character or whatever dies in the lands of Logarin, there is a 1 in 100 chance that they will get Dragon's Rage. Originally, we just called this the Rage template.
This is when the dragon Elixtriac was bound and he was chained, and his rage was literally seeping
into
the land of Kalidor and infecting people who were resurrecting, or the template applied to things like zombies occasionally, undead. I think we used it on some.
So we used it on
Flynn,
some creatures,
definitely.
some
Flynn,
fetch.
Fetch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there were a lot of creatures that wound up with this, and plenty of players wound up experiencing
Dragon
Rage 2, which is basically just a series of buffs
Mm-hmm.
and a real hardcore anger for anybody that's in your way.
So he did quite a number. We also met a couple other pivotal characters at this event. They eventually killed Delbert.
What was the
We had Twixel Cobblepot.
Twixel Cobblepot
and
the Oxgar? What was the Oxgar?
Kortoth the Mauler.
Kortoth the Mauler.
Because they were from the fighting pits in Muirhaven.
Right. We had a gladiator battle
We did.
back. That was pretty interesting.
In the skating rink area.
Oh, and orcs. There were some killer orcs.
Some orcs from the wall that had been paid by
That
Hoskell.
were in league with.
Hoskell.
But who were they looking for? They were looking for Jimmy DeCoin.
Jimmy the Coin.
Jimmy the Coin.
And Jimmy the Coin definitely came in a couple seasons later quite a bit.
Yeah,
but
our first weaver of abacus.
yes, Jimmy the Coin.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of firsts.
Lots of integral characters came to this event. And this was only the first sort of half of it. Afterwards, of course, everyone was quite perturbed and sad at Delbert's death.
He died, Marston takes over.
Marston took over, and Malik, of course, was in support of Marston. Malik was declared the Reeve, Marston's Reeve, and helped to enforce the law. And nobody knew who had poisoned or got the poison.
Right. So all these events are ensuing, and somebody finally notices, where'd that little girl go? Where did Anastasia go? She had disappeared. She was gone. So the crusade left the tavern as a crusade for the first time. They wandered down the road and found the little girl's basket of apples. They'd all toppled over and turned black. And a little bit further from that, they found a little hinge that was falling apart, a little druidic hinge. And there she stood, illuminated, with a knife in her hand. And she began...
White dress.
In a white dress. And she began to sing terrible little nursery rhymes as she would cut herself. And when we say she cut herself, blood squirted everywhere, all over her white dress.
It's amazing what you can do with condoms, fishing line, fake blood, and a washer.
Yes. Well done, Trav.
Well done. That's a shout out. That was definitely Trevor Jerome that did that. It was amazing.
Amazing stuff.
But then once they defeated her and her grave shambling minions that she summoned, Father Harridan was with them, and he actually had to break use a ritual to break the bubble she was protected by.
Yeah.
They actually had to carry her.
Yeah. Well, she was possessed by a spirit, not a demon or an angel, but a spirit.
A spirit of a witch. Named Tilvalian Bloodthorn.
So she had this spirit within her, and Tilvalian was an old. He was an old demon worshiper,
old druid.
Also a druid, and he retained some power beyond the grave. And so the crusade picked up this little girl's body, sticky with blood all over it, and carried her into the back room of the tavern, where an exorcism occurred, which was pretty epic. They had to hold her down, and their hands were just sticky with blood, and they were covered in it. And she was just screaming and calling them terrible names and writhing, and it was pretty intense. And Father Harridan's performing his ritual, and he's feeding her little holy wafers of kale, and all of a sudden he feeds her one last one, and her mouth lights up, and this spirit leaves her. But where did the spirit go?
Where did the spirit go, indeed? The spirit actually took physical form at this point. It was released finally from Anastasia. So it took physical form, wearing a Three Maidens mask, which is a red mask. It was apparently a worshipper of the Three Maidens, Tilvalian was. And he attacked. And the Crusade, as we call them at this point, because they'd signed the charter and become the Crusade to take Eslamir back, they were able to defeat him. And when he died, he crumbled into ash. And our good friend Garjan, the white tiger Savar, played by Jordan, decided to root around in the ashes of this spirit, looking for loot, which then, of course, tainted him and formed a connection between Mr. Ashworth, Mr. Garjan, and
the demonic.
And the demon known as Lazabul.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, indeed.
So, but that didn't progress until a little bit later. A little while later.
Actually, at the next event that we did, and we'll talk about after. But
yeah. Tevalian's conquered. The Crusader turns into the tavern. They are having their final drink there, and then they notice somebody's missing.
Hoskeld
Dreywood. The Reeve of Ostenveld.
And with little pieces of information that we left around, they figured out that
They pieced
together that Hoskeld was the poisoner.
He's the one who poisoned Duke Dalbert.
Yes, so they went out and tracked him down and fought him on a field of battle with him and his deputies. That was the first time we tried to use javelins.
That's terrible.
That was horrible.
At the top of this little hill, and javelins go, and the wind blows, and they sort of just go right back at you.
Yeah, it was kind of neat that things were falling around you as you're running in. We also tried traps. We used AstroTurf and covered up mouse traps and stuff. And I think our NPCs that were playing the deputies stepped on more of them than the players ever did.
I accidentally healed a deputy.
Well done.
After he went down, little Tony.
Well done.
Yeah.
So the final sort of battle was what we would call a popcorn battle. Until Hoskell died, the deputies just kept spawning and spawning and spawning.
It was a pretty difficult battle too.
It was tough. It went on for quite a while.
Yeah.
Until they finally cornered and killed Hoskell. And on him they found a letter from a benefactor known as VV that made this poison. And this letter was shown to the Reeve, the new Reeve, Malik. And Malik says he knew of a necromancer named VV, and we must catch him and find him and find out who was behind this scheme to poison his dear old grandfather, even though Malik was quite knowing about who had done it, as it was him who did it. But the players have now ventured with him to the land of Runnelton, which we will talk about next time.
We'll talk about next time, yeah. So Anastasia was exorcised of the spirit that's possessing her. She went on to crave more of that sweet demonic power juice.
Well,
and became a recurring villain for the Crusade.
Yeah,
still around.
She is still around. Anastasia was also had a connection formed to the demon Lazabul, much like Garjan. And coming up, you'll see that Garjan and Anastasia were given the choice that only one of them would be the Scion of Lazabul. And we'll talk about who became the Scion of Lazabul when we talk about Sandal Hill, which will be in 2 episodes from now.
Yeah. Very good.
All right. So, yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks for watching.
That's our first one. And if you have any questions about the Laughing Raven event or any other productions or games run by Tall Tale Gaming, just contact us on our webpage or Facebook group, and we'll be happy to answer.
Facebook.com/Kalidorians
or talltalegaming.com. It's a great place to come. You can find out about our team game. You can find out about our Zombie Apocalypse, Camp Z. We also have Starfall, and of course, Underworld Kalidor. So thanks. Have a good night.